Okay, so one of the things I last week I talked about the yamas, and this week I talked about the niyamas, and today I'm going to talk about the kleshas. They're all these fun little names, words in Sanskrit. I don't know much Sanskrit at all, not at all, but it's I love how the Yoga Sutra has just so much information, very useful information available in it for us to contemplate and try to help us figure out how we want to best live our lives. So the kleshas are not part of the eight limb path of yoga. They're not, one of the limbs of yoga, but what they are is the hindrances and the obstacles in our way. So the things that we come across when we're trying to lead a moral, spiritual, in communion with others, healthy life. And we come across these blocks that can challenge our ability to really deeply connect with the oneness of all things. So it's not a religious path, but it is a spiritual path. And really the precepts of yoga can be brought into any spiritual tradition. So the kleshas, or the causes of our suffering, are a few. So first is avidya, which is just the ignorance about who we truly are. We feel isolated, we feel separated, we feel that we are our own little beings in our own little box and walking around the earth, and we're separate from each other. And ultimately, this is not the truth, that we are deeply connected to each other. And we forget it sometimes. We forget and feel all the impact of loneliness and the individuality of suffering that doesn't necessarily have to be. So that's the first, is to realize that we are not alone and we are not separate from. And the second is our ego, the trappings of the ego. The ego is so useful. It's such an important aspect of our human evolution, our incarnation on this planet, or however you believe. Our ego, identifying with our ego, is a really important part of being human. But it also can have the trappings of, the I, that I see myself from my perspective. And it kind of goes along with this sense of disconnect that we can find from feeling like we are connected to all. So the next of the kleshas is this attachment to what we want. And the next one is the aversion to what we don't want. So this clinging to past joys or to future hopes, or I want my cake and eat it too. I want it this way, and I want it, bigger, better, more, now, faster. This American culture that we've kind of cultivated, this attachment, and I think this is one that's really. I think that these two, the attachment and the clinging, the clinging to what we want and the aversion to what we don't want, is really showing up for us a lot in this year with COVID. Our lives are changing, and who knows how they will permanently be changed from this year. But they are changing, and they have changed, and they will continue to change. And this is difficult for many of us who really enjoy just kind of resting in the same, in the knowledge of routine and comfort. And this is how it's always been, and this is how it always should be. And this is how I want it to be. So when we have to let go and look at a new paradigm, this can be very challenging for us. And same with the aversion. I don't want change. I don't want, fill in the blank. Anything that you're avoiding, conversations that you're avoiding, people that you're avoiding, places that you're avoiding, the closet that needs to be cleaned out that you're avoiding, whatever it is, that those secret parts in our brain that we don't like to look at, or the secret parts in our heart that we don't like to look at. These are the aversions that we are trying to step away from. And then, of course, the aversions can be like the darkness or the suffering of others that are very difficult for us to hold. This can be a piece of that aversion as well. So it causes us suffering. All of this causes suffering within us. So if we are able to let go and pivot with what happens, and allow ourselves to stay in the flow, which is really why you need the yamas and the niyamas to kind of cultivate these capacities within you ahead of time. Then that when you start to face the kleshas, you have skills built up to be able to work with the aversions and the clingings and the ego and that sense of separate self. And then the last, which I've been working with a lot lately in my work, is our fear of death. it's a primal fear. All beings on the planet are kind of innately built with it. But I think the more we can prepare for the art of letting go now, little things, letting go of little things, which comes into the play of the other kleshas of letting go of what you want and avoiding what you don't want. If we work on these skills of staying in the flow, somebody recently described it to me as, the banks of the river, a fast running river, and you're afraid. So you hold on to a branch on the side of the river, that actually you get much more battered holding on than if you just let yourself fall into the flow and go with the stream. And the fear of death is probably the biggest one we have in this regard. And working in hospice, I'm seeing how people are facing their deaths, and the work that they have done to prepare throughout their lives to be able to surrender, or haven't done throughout their lives in order to surrender, shows up in the dying process in unique ways. And it's a lesson for me to observe people who are dying, to work on it myself, to work on this art of letting go. I read an article years ago by a rabbi who was getting closer to death, and his practice was he laid in a coffin for his shavasana and his meditation every day. Literally, he laid in a coffin to get used to the idea of letting his body go. And in yoga, we don't have to be as extreme as that. But in yoga, we have an opportunity in every asana class in shavasana to practice the art of letting go of our physical form, to let our body slough off and be yielding into the earth, to let the mind go, to let things move through us. So there's little tiny moments of practice for all of these kleshas throughout every single day, where you have an opportunity to notice, do you feel connected? Can you cultivate the connection? Are you being led by your ego? Are you have an aversion to something? What can you do with that? Are you clinging on to something, what you want? How can you let that go? And all these smaller things that we can cultivate every single day will lead us to having a lot of capacity when the big things come, not just our death, but the big things, the big losses in our life, the job loss, the losing people you love, all these things that come inevitably, we have a little more capacity for. So let's sit up straight and tall and take a moment to think about these kleshas for yourself. Do you struggle with one of them in particular? Are there times in your day or in your life where you feel very separate? Are there times when you feel very connected? Are there times when you feel very ego-driven? And are there times when you feel your ego dissolve? Are there times when you cling wholeheartedly to wanting something to go a certain way? Are there times when you surrender into the flow of letting what will happen, happen? Are there times when you have deep aversion to facing someone or something? Are there times when you pull up your bootstraps and dive right in? Are there moments when you contemplate what happens after you die and what it might feel like to release from your body? Are there times when that scares the daylights out of you? So just notice the shifting emotional states when I bring up the two opposing ways of handling the kleshas. And can you see how working with them can slip you into that stream? Letting go of the banks and becoming one with the water, flowing, turbulent, smooth, doesn't matter, just staying in the flow. So breathe deeply. Ground yourself in this moment. Drop down. Feel yourself become connected to maybe the people that are in class with you, even though they're not in your physical presence, can you feel each other's energy? Can you allow the breath to rise and fall without holding or holding back? Start to feel that energy can move freely through you, that we don't guard or grip unnecessarily. That the ways we hold on or can't let go or don't want to look at can just dissolve. Let the breath move freely through you. Feel the experience of allowing inside your body, allowing energy movement, allowing breath movement. What do you need to do to allow? Melt through your face, relax through your eyes. Take time to just be in the presence of your breath. Place the palms together at your heart and bow in. Take a moment to offer an intention for yourself. What do you need from your asana practice today? And then let's release the hands and come onto your back. Sometimes that attachment can be simply, I wish that my hip didn't hurt. I wish I hadn't injured my shin. Whatever. I wish I didn't drink that alcohol last night. I wish I got more sleep. Okay, so whatever the kind of, things that you're gripping onto, see what you can do to let go. All right, and then stretch the body, arms overhead, maybe lengthen the left side, maybe lengthen the right side. Just open up the side rims of the body. Start to invite that sensation of presence. How's your breath? And it's okay if you have a desire to, kind of grip the breath for a moment and squeeze. Sometimes that little tiny squeeze can do wonders for letting the next breath be easy. Okay, relax the arms and bring your knees to your chest and rock a little bit, just swaying from side to side. Going back and forth, back and forth. All right, and then let's circle the knees a few times. Okay, so going one direction, and just notice, do you always go the same direction? So, be thankful for patterning in your body. Patterning in our body helps us move very efficiently through the day. Now go the other direction. And let's be thankful for lack of patterning to bring us into a state of heightened awareness. All right, bring the right knee into the chest, left leg long, spread out your toes and wiggle through your ankles, get some movement. Enjoy your feet for a sec. Okay, so they take you through your day, so let's give them some time in the sun. And if you have trouble with your feet, instead of being like, oh, I wish I didn't have trouble with my feet, what can you do to just be where you are, to accept where you are? Change legs, left knee in, right leg long on the ground. Extend the spine. Can you work within the range of motion everywhere in your body that's healthy for you? Let's try not to shy away from your depth, but don't go past where your body needs to be. So listen closely in to know where those points are. And then let's bring the right knee into the chest, and let's open up the knees out and bring them back in. Just going back and forth and back and forth. Just enjoy opening up the hip joints to whatever way is comfortable for you. How's your breath? All right, and then let's open the knees up. Come into Supta Baddha Konasana just for a moment. You can always take your fists underneath your outer thighs if you need a little support. But just see what it feels like to open things up, and just notice if you shift. If you have a pelvic tilt, can you sense that without looking? Can you feel if one hip drops lower than the other, if you tip to one side or the other. Bring your arms out to the side and take a big chest and belly breath. All right, and then let's bring our knees back into the chest. Knees in, chest in, chin up. Inhale, spread your legs and arms wide on the floor. Open your body. Exhale, hug in. Finding your way, expand, open. Exhale, draw in. Let's try that one more time. Are you enjoying being in your body? Let's go ahead and roll over onto your side and come up onto your hands and your knees. And let's find our way into some cat-cows. All right, and just enjoy. So what is your body feeling like? What kind of movement do you need to pay attention to today? Is there a part of your body that needs some care? All right, and then move things around any way you want to move things around. You can swirl through your hips and shoulders. You can move through your head. Breathing deeply, move your head around. Move your tail around. Move your shoulders around. And then stretch back towards child's pose. Open up your arms wherever you want. Perhaps they come over your head. Perhaps they come down at your side. So wherever you're going, just be there. Relax the base of the skull. Try to soften the traps. Walk the hands over to the left side of the mat and open up the right side body. Feel the weight come down into the hips. Relax your neck. Deep breath in and away. And then come back to center and inch over to the other side. Relax the base of the skull. Feel the softness come. Breathe deeply. And then come back to center. Come up onto all fours. Let's find our warming up twist. Reach the arm up. Exhale, slide that shoulder down. Gaze toward the floor. Find the breath. All right, and inhale, reach that arm all the way back up to the sky. Place that hand down. Change sides. Exhale, slide the shoulder underneath. Gaze toward the floor. Breathe deeply. Inhale, reach that arm all the way back up. Place the hand down onto the ground. Curl your toes under for a moment. Stretch back towards child's pose. Put your knees together and stretch back towards child's pose. And stay on your hands so that you really know how far to go back. And let the bottom of the feet open a little bit here. Finding the breath, opening up the spread out feet. And then smack your feet on the floor. Just tap the tops of your feet. Then curl them under and find your way to dog pose. Stretch out the calves, so feel free to bend one knee and stretch the other heel down toward the floor. Then bend the other knee and stretch the heel down toward the floor. Just opening up the lower legs a little bit. You can go back and forth. You can be still, whatever is feeling nice. Spread out the bones of your feet. Feel the arches lift. Feel from the inner arch and the outer arch, lift all the way up to the tops of your thighs. Stretch your femur bones up toward the pelvis and back. Extend and lift the sit bones. Take some deep breaths here. Melt through your head. What can you release? Try to practice that art in the breath of letting go. And then let's walk our feet forward and come into Uttanasana. Notice, when you're in moments where you're avoiding something, having an aversion to something, and when you're in times when you're holding on to something. Okay? So these causes of our suffering often have a deep correlation to what we're doing with our breath. So pay attention to your breathing.
Guys, let's wag our tail, wag your head around, loosen things up. Inhale for a halfway lift. And then exhale and melt back down. Anytime you find your breath stuck somewhere, see what you can do to just loosen the reins. Let go of the banks of the river and come into the flow of the breath. Reaching the arms up to the sky, finding your way into a big stretch, opening your chest, finding the breath. Okay. And then when you're ready, interlace your hands behind your back, open the chest up, bend your knees and come forward again. Arms come away from the spine, wherever is comfortable for you. So find what's working for the breath, relax, then release your hands down onto the ground. Halfway lift, extending the spine, exhale and melting back down. Step your left foot back, your right foot comes forward, finding a lunge here. Extend through your heart. Feel your breath, hang out here for a moment, spread out the bones of your feet, feel the rooting into the earth and the rebound, especially, well, with both feet, but feel the back foot too. Root into the toes and then rebound all the way through to your crown. Feel that long line in the body. Find your breath. Let's go ahead and come up to crescent lunge, reaching the arms upward or outward or downward or anywhere you want them. Find a big open chest. Breathe into the openness of the hip flexors. Stay steady in your lunge. Feel the earth. Let your breath flow. And then exhale and release the hands back down onto the ground. Straighten your front leg a little bit. Tuck your chin toward your chest. Back into a lunge you go. One more time. Straighten that leg. Stay with the breath. It doesn't matter where you're breathing, but just stay with the breath. Go ahead and put your back knee down onto the ground. Bring your front foot out to the side more. Bring your hands onto the inside edge of your foot. They can be on blocks or on the floor, whichever is okay for your body. Your back knee can now lift up off the floor, or you can keep it there. Extend the heart, widen the sit bones. Just get into the deep compression in the hip, in the front hip, and the deep opening in the back. Finding your breath. Let's join. So bring the left foot up, come to a deep squat. So you might want your feet wider than the mat. You might want them on the mat. You might want your toes turned out or straight. Find your way here. If your knees don't like squatting, notice if you lean into one knee or the other. See if you can find some balance, even if it means you need to come much higher. Elbows inside the knees. If you go that low, try not to let the hips go past or lower than the knees. Extend the spine. Feel the compression in your hips. Place the hands down onto the ground. Lift your hips high. Heel toe your feet in if they got wider. And take your right foot back, coming into a lunge. Hands can be on blocks or anywhere you want them to be. You can always put your back knee on the floor. There's so many ways to modify everything you do in yoga. So, experiment and see what your body's needing on any day. Let go of what your practice was yesterday or tomorrow. Try to just listen to what your body needs now. Rise up, crescent lunge on this side. Put your arms wherever feels best to you. There's so many choices about what to do with your upper body as well as your lower body. You can come a little out of the lunge. You can take your foot further out to the side. You can put your back knee on the floor. There's so many ways to modify and adjust your postures so that you can breathe well. So if we're having this goal of staying in the stream and letting go of the banks, the breath is our primary way to feel energy moving in our body. We have lots of things moving in our body. You have so much blood flow moving right now. You have nerve impulses. You have lymph. You have all sorts of things happening that are moving within you without you feeling it. And that's not even including your prana, this big energy that connects you to the universe. Place the hands down onto the ground. Let's begin to straighten the leg a little bit. Front leg, bow in, tuck your chin. Make sure you're breathing. Bend your front knee. Stretch open through the hip flexors on the back leg. One more time, squaring hips, straightening your front leg. Bending your front knee. Place your back knee onto the floor. Take your hands to the inside edge of your knee Adjust anything, hands on blocks or not. Find your breath. Decide whether you want your back knee to stay on the floor or if you want your back knee to lift up off the floor. If when you lift up your knee, you feel tension in the knee itself, try to bend the knee a little bit more so that you're not overwhelming yourself by hyperextending. Move the shoulders away from the ears, widen the sit bones, finding your deep breathing. Okay. Let's step back to dog pose. Lengthen through the spine. Deep breaths here. Take your feet wide on the mat, and let's just turn them in for just a moment. Feel the inner spiral of the thighs. Let the femur bones root back. Just notice what's different when you turn your toes in. How is your breath different? What are the sensations in your body? And now we're going to do just the opposite. Bring your heels to touch and turn your toes out, even if your heels are nowhere near the floor. And you don't have to have your heels touching. You can have your feet further apart. And just notice what's different here. It's such a weird thing to do, right? We don't ever do this in dog pose. But notice what's different. And then come back to your regular old dog pose. Enjoy the ease of it, the comfort of it. Relax your head. Inhale, come forward into a plank. Stabilize through the core of the body. Shoulders are away from the ears. Use your breath. Deep inhales and exhales. Lower yourself down to the floor. Come all the way down to the ground. Take a deep breath in. Cobra pose. Open your body up. Exhale and lower things down. Scooch to the, well, you don't have to if you're on a carpet, but let's lift the right knee up toward the chest. If you're just on your mat, scooch to the left side of your mat so you have room for your knee. And just come into Sphinx with your arms, opening up the hip a little bit. Stretch through the straight leg, drop weight into the right sit bone, extending the spine. Don't go very high with your torso. And then relax and lower that leg back. Change sides. Bring the knee up. Sphinx pose with your upper body, so forearms on the floor. Drop weight into the hip compression. Extend through the back leg. Move the shoulders away from the ears. Notice when something becomes a little unusual, do you stop breathing? You know, if you're feeling a little discomfort because this is challenging for your flexion, what do you do with the breath? All right, great. Come down onto your belly and lie on your right side on your mat. Okay. So we're going to form a straight line with our arm, okay, all the way to our feet. Try to be on a knife edge with your whole body. So, you know, be honest with yourself on your knife edge. It should feel, tricky, even just here to balance if you're truly on a precipice instead of bending your hips or rolling one way or the other. Find your breath, lift the arm in the air, take a deep breath in, lift your other leg, your top leg in the air. So we're on our right side, where our lefts are lifting, left arm, left leg. Internally rotate your foot a little bit. Feel the outer hip strengthen. Stabilize through your core. If this makes sense to you, lift your mouse slowly if you've heard me use that terminology before. And if not, just kinch up the sideways like you're drawing the drawstring of a pair of pants tight around your waist. Find your breath. Notice if your breath is difficult to find, difficult to move. Okay, and then exhale and go ahead and relax. Before we switch sides, bend your knees here. Come up with both knees so that your hips and knees are in line with each other. Grab your top ankle and stretch that thigh. So if you can't reach your ankle, you can always use a strap. Let your quad lengthen a little bit. Your other leg can hang out wherever is comfortable, so you can have a different angle if you need a different angle. Extending through the spine. Tailbone reaching toward the foot, or toward the knee, I should say. Deep breaths. Okay, and then go ahead and relax. Roll over onto your back, and let's go ahead and switch sides. So now we're going to come on to our left side. Find your breath, find your precipice, and then as you are ready, go ahead and lift this leg up in the air and lift your arm up in the air. And notice Do you have preference? Is one side more difficult than the other for you to balance on the tiny edge? Engage your quads, feel your hips work. Internally rotate the thigh a little bit. Find your mouse hole. Find your drawstring. Draw your drawstring in. So use your core. When you do all this, try not to grip with such might that you're not breathing. So learn to let go in the process of engagement. And then let's go ahead and relax that. Bend both knees. Grab onto the top foot and stretch your quad. Lengthen your knee away from your pelvis. See if you can lengthen your tailbone in that direction as well. Relax your head. You can support it on your arm. And then go ahead and relax. Come onto your back. I promise we'll get up and do some standing poses in a moment. We're going to come up into a bridge, a low bridge. So, you don't have to go to your highest height. Stabilize. And I want you to try to drop one hip down and then lift it back up. We're not going to go all the way down to the ground, just tipping and then come back up. So what's doing this? What are you having to let go? And what are you having to engage? To drop one hip and lift it back. Finding the breath. All right, and then come resting onto the floor, pelvis onto the ground. I think I've used this cueing before, so hopefully this makes sense. Put a pitcher of water or a teacup. Let's use teacups. It's morning. Let's have tea. Put a teacup on, like a fancy teacup with a saucer, on your left knee. Okay. And then as you open up the right knee out to the side, try not to spill your left teacup. Your left knee teacup, and then inhale and lift that right knee back up. Put your teacup on your right knee, open up your left knee out to the side. Now, when you are trying really hard not to spill, this is a bit of holding on. This is a bit of, clinging. So what can you do as you go back and forth from one side to the other to maintain breathing? Notice if your desire to not spill your imaginary teacup has made you not breathe. So let's see if we cannot deny energy flow. There's nothing that we can do to hold on, right? So most things, if they're meant to go, they're going to go whether we're gripping or not. So we might as well not cause ourselves some suffering by not breathing, not moving. Just keep going back and forth, starting to wake up the transverse abdominis deep in the belly. Stay in the presence of your breath. All right, now 2 teacups, one on each knee. Find your breath, and we're going to purposely spill our tea out to the side. So open your knees. We're not going to turn our feet in very far, so we're not going into Supta Baddha Konasana. So only go as far out as you can go while maintaining your feet on the floor, and then come back in. How's your breath? This is a lot of deep abdominal work. It may not feel like a lot, but it actually is a lot. So notice what your breath is doing. Where is it easiest for you to exhale? Where is it easiest for you to inhale? And now forget the tea. I want you to find that you're pushing against an imaginary hand on the way out, on the outer knees, and then push against an imaginary hand against the inner knees on your way back in. Start to feel your transverse abdominis, this deep abdominal muscle. Your psoas muscles are kicking in too to do this. Notice if you're feeling this through the deep low back, the deep belly, the deep core. And then relax for a moment. Bring your knees to your chest and let yourself rock and release any bit of that. Find the breath again. Stretch out to a starfish. Open your body up. Squeeze your legs. And then exhale and draw your knees to your chest. Roll over onto your side and come up to dog pose. Lengthen through your sides. Feel the energy. Feel the yielding. Give yourself over to the breath. So here's an easy place for us to breathe, compared to what you just did. So through your day, when you find the easy places, the easy practice moments to, oh, I can just let that go. I don't need to hold on to that. Even something beautiful that you walk by on the sidewalk, notice it and then let it go. Try not to be averted to, is that a word, averted to? Something that you don't want to look at when you're walking down the street. See if you can just let it in and then let it go and not attach to a deny or grip. Let's find your right leg lifting high in the air. Open up the hips, stack. Deep breath in. Square the hips. Bring your foot forward to a lunge. Climb all the way up and turn and open up to the side. Virabhadrasana 2, Warrior 2. So find the pleasure of your stable, broad, endurance-producing standing poses. They're so good for building resiliency and endurance in the body. So let's find that strength. Root in, rise up. Find the breath flowing. Put your arms where you want them. Put your hips where you want them. Put your knees where you want them. Find just the perfect alignment for you. Try not to let your front knees come past the ankle. It can be before the ankle, but try not to let it go past the ankle. Find the breath. Relax the shoulders. The traps are sliding down like a water slide down your back. Finding the breath. Okay, let's come on up. We're going to turn and do the same pose to the second side. Just warming up the standing pose vibe in your legs. So coming into Virabhadrasana 2. And just notice, where do you want to plant your body? Where's your knee happiest? Where does the placement of your hip affect you? So if you want to turn your hips toward your front knee a little bit more for ease in your pelvis, that's great. Just try to move the femur bone back and plant yourself in a comfortable place where you're not having a fight against which way do I go? Do I turn toward my knee? Do I pull away from my knee? Try to find just the sweet spot for you. Drop the shoulders. Arms go where arms go. Find the flow of your breath. What can you relax? As you exhale, can you drop away something? Can you release any barrier to energy flow in the body? All right, let's go ahead and come back up. I'm pretty sure all of you know this technique, but let's practice it for where we're going. Turn your toes out a little bit. We're going to come down like goddess pose. You can put your hands on your head. Sometimes it's helpful to see your feet when you do this, just so you have some idea of what you're doing. So we're going to spin jar lids with our feet. So imagine trying to open a jar lid. So we're going to take our feet and turn them out. So left foot goes left, right foot goes right. And our heels are going to come in. So you want to move your heels forward on the mat. Toes move back, heels move forward. What's happening in your hips when you do this? Try to have that action and then sit up a little bit more. See what it feels like. So at the same time as you're working the energy of your feet, can you melt? Can you ground? Can you yield into the earth? Can you have both the work and the surrender happening simultaneously? Take a deep breath. Put your arms up if you can. Find the fullness of your pose. Energy moving. And then stand up straight and tall. Turn back to the first side. Find your breath. Parsvakonasana. Place your elbow on your knee. Open your chest and stretch through that arm in the air. Unless your arm's choosing to do something different. Find your jar lid on that front foot. Feel the work in your hips. Open up the back leg. Femur bone moving back. A slight internal rotation. Root the heel to rise through your crown. Feel the energy flow in your body. What's stuck? Where are you stuck? Why are you stuck? What can you do about it? Is there something you can soften? Is there a place you can bring breath to? Can you go deeper? Can you back away? What's going to give you a sense of flow in an area of your body that feels stuck? Okay, let's go ahead and come back. Turn your feet again. Parsvakonasana on the other side. Bend your knee. Place your elbow on your knee. Open the chest. Find your jar lid on that foot. Feel the yielding. Give yourself over to the posture. Find your fullness. So commit to the fullness of what you can do range of motion wise, but try not to go past that. And the commitment means that you can breathe, that you feel both stable and free, that your breath is flowing, that you feel energy moving. Scan and find the stuck spots. What can you do? And perhaps there's nothing to do. Perhaps you're like, nope, that's just an area that's stuck today. And you just need to be there with it. Let it go. Breathe there. Drop the shoulders. Relax your face. Soften your hands. Root your feet. All right, let's go ahead and come on up. Spin back to the front edge of your mat. Three-legged dog with your left leg lifting high in the air. Stack open the left hip. Feel free to bend your knee if you want, or keep it straight. Okay, then let's spin back. Legs straight up, put your foot down onto the ground, dog pose. Deep breath in, feel the flow. Melt. Let your skin drape. What would it feel like to let your skin on your face loosen away from your bones? Let it fall away. Come forward into a plank. Hold yourself steady, finding the breath. Deep inhale, deep exhale. When you're ready, put your knees onto the floor. Find your way to the floor safely. Inhale, maybe it's cobra pose, maybe it's up dog, maybe it's a different back bend. Find what works in your body. Release when you're ready. Pick up your feet, windshield wiper your knees. Release any tension in your back. Come on up onto all fours. Take your right hand on the mat, your right knee, your left foot line up. You can always put a block underneath your hand if you need some more height. There's always ways to modify everything. Take a breath. Now, as we lift our arm, we're going to start with our shin perpendicular to the mat. So first, the shin is on the floor this way. Drop the shoulders away from the ears. Breathe. Now I want you to practice turning the shin all the way so that your right foot is lined up with the arch of your left foot on the floor. Notice what's different here. So see if you can find those jar lid muscles in your hip. Almost imagine your knee can do that same spin that your foot did. Find the breath here. Find your sideways. Pinch up those drawstrings. Breathe. Now see what it might feel like to lift your leg in the air. This is tricky bounce. We're back onto our precipice again. You don't have to have your hand on the block. Okay? So don't worry if you're all wobbly. Just see what you find. You can keep your hand on your hip or lift it in the air. Internally rotate the leg in the air. Press your shin into the floor. Okay, and then relax and spin around. Child's pose. Rest the spine. Deep breaths here. Let's go the other direction. So left hand, left knee first. The shin is perpendicular. Open your chest. Foot on the ground, other foot on the ground. So line up left hand, left knee, right foot. Open the chest. Arm can come in the air. Arm can come over the head. Where do you want to be? Finding the open collarbones. Find the breath. Let it flow. And then when you're ready, spin the shin. So now we're going to have our shin lined up with our hand, our knee, and our 2 feet. Okay. So already this is a lot more balance. Just see what it feels like. Don't worry if you can't do it. And a little tiny hack is to take your left hand out to the left more. So if you're going to come off your precipice, try that. Try taking your hand away from the line. And when you're ready, lift that leg in the air. Open the chest. Spin your jar lids with your knee. Press your shin. Find your drawstrings on your waist. Open the chest. Now, perhaps you're like me and you have furniture in the way and your head's resting on something. So just be where you are in your little space. Open your chest. Let the energy flow. There's lots of work in this pose. Okay. Exhale. Come back down. Lift all the way up and back to dog pose. Extending the spine, bend the knees a lot. Let the back open. Take a deep breath into the spine. Walk your feet forward and come into Uttanasana. Fold in half. Bend your knees. Wag your tail. Move your shoulders around. Inhale for a halfway lift. Exhale and melt back down. Push off your feet. Rise up. Bring the arms to the sky. Finding the breath. And then release the arms. Tree pose. Root your right foot in. Open up. Now you can have your foot, and I almost would recommend it for where we're going next, to have your toes still touching the floor. So you might think, oh, that's not tree pose. I'm not balancing. It's still tree pose. It's just a lower tree. But this can really do some good work in the hips, almost differently, very differently from when your foot is high. Both are good. There's no rights or wrongs. But if you've never tried this before, try staying low and spin that jar lid. Open those muscles in that hip. Let them work. Take a deep breath. Reach the arms up. Maybe the arms come out. Where are your arms? Finding the breath. And then release and relax that foot onto the ground. Change sides. So regardless, if you're doing the high version, that's awesome too. So just don't be pushing your heel against your knee. Just try to be anywhere but there. This knee that you're standing on, let it be soft. Feel the yielding. Give yourself over to a little bit. Try not to hyperextend. Don't let your hip push out. Keep the hip engaged. Soften the knee, root the foot. Open the right hip. Lift your arms if you want. Finding the breath. Move through the flow of the river again. Deep inhales, deep exhales. Sideways. Can you find them? All right, let that go. Maybe you want to jump or hop, bounce, whatever feels nice. Okay, we're going to spread out our legs. So go to the long edge, grab a block. Coming into Ardha Chandrasana. I always run out of room. So when you come up into this pose, choose a spot in your room where you have enough room. Okay, as you come up into Ardha Chandrasana, that same hack can apply. If you want to bring your left hand to the left a little bit more. Ooh, I'm on my left side. You might be on your right side. I can't remember what I said. So whatever side you're on, if you want to bring that arm out to the side a little bit more, you can. Engage your sideways. Feel the work of the jar lid muscles in your hips. Soften your knee that you're standing on. Root and extend. Let yourself be in the flow. Even if you're wobbly, let yourself be in the flow. Make sure your foot didn't turn on the floor. All right, and then from here, take a giant step back to triangle pose or warrior pose or some way of getting up that's externally rotated like that. And then let's switch sides. So whatever side you didn't do, now we're going to the other side. Look at your foot. Make sure it's planted well, not turned in or turned out. The hand that's on the block can come out to the side, the pinky toe side of your foot more for balance if you need it. You can also stack one block on top of the other if you need some extra height. Let's hop right up into the pose. Open the chest, lift that leg in the air. Find your breathing body. Feel your sideways engage in, soften your knee. Feel the jar spin of your foot on the floor. So even though that might make your balance a little wonky, see what it feels like to isometrically turn your toes out and your heel in. Feel that work in the hip to hold you. The leg in the air, lift, lift, lift. Use those outer hip muscles. Extend the spine. Keep breathing. Stay in the flow. Even if you're all bouncy and wobbly going down the river, stay in the flow. Keep breathing. Okay, I'm going to take a giant step back, coming out of the pose, spin back to the front of your mat for a dog pose. Turn your toes in, feet are wide on the mat. Turn your toes in and enjoy that counterbalance of the internal rotation. Extending the spine, Flow in the breath now. Maybe it's a little easier. Practice these things when they're easy so that when we meet up against the hard stuff, we have tools. Practice the letting go when it's easy to let it go. Practice the pulling your bootstraps up and jumping into something you don't want to do when it's easy. Let's come forward, come into a plank, finding the breath, and lower ourselves down to the ground. Breathe deeply, just rest for a moment. Any back bend that feels nice in your body, be very gentle, and then find your way back down. As you come up, maybe you want to pit stop on all fours to move things around. Maybe you want to do some sways, cat-cows. So this might be available, might not be available, so I'll give you a plan B if this isn't. We're going to lift your right leg up, cross it over your left thigh, and then come back towards child's pose with your thighs crossed. If this is not available for you to cross thigh over thigh, that's totally fine. You're going to keep your knees not crossed, and you're just going to drop to one side. Drop your hips over to one side. Okay. Sometimes it's easier. Well, I'll tell you the easier way on the other side. Okay. Relax your head. Breathe deeply. Come back up. Sometimes it's easier to move the back leg instead of the top leg, so you can unwind the bottom leg, and then either lift left leg over, right leg over left. I'm having trouble remembering which side I told you to do. So do the opposite side, but perhaps it's easier to cross the leg behind instead of cross the leg in front. Drop your hips down. If you're not doing this, just sway your hips over to the other side. Relax your neck. Breathe deeply. Yeah, let's go ahead and come back up. Pigeon pose. Let's bring our right leg forward first. You can always do a reverse pigeon pose and flip over onto your back. If you need some support with blocks or blankets, take what you need so you can put something underneath your sit bone. Your foot can be close to your pubic bone or pulled out a little bit. Your back leg is straight. Turn your toes either curled under or flat, whichever is good for your body. Come down when you're ready. Lengthen through the spine. Make sure that your knee and ankle are in a happy place. This is often a place where we tend to hold on to the banks of the river. So see what you can do to slip yourself into the stream. How is your breath? All right, and then when you're ready, we can find our way to the other side. If you need support, take support. If you're on your back, reverse pigeon pose is a wonderful pose. Just in case you're unfamiliar, right foot or left foot rather can go on right knee and reach up. This is reverse pigeon pose versus regular pigeon pose. They're so similar. They're not quite exactly the same, but they're so similar. The big difference between the two is what gravity's doing to you. So when you're in pigeon pose, gravity is insisting that the pose go deeper. So you have to make sure that you are in a comfortable place for the alignment of your joints. When you're on your back, you have a little bit more, gravity's not pressing down on your joints the same way. You don't have your body weight descending onto your joints. So you have a little more leeway, which is why reverse pigeon pose often is good if you have joint problems. If your hip, SI joint, or knee tends to be problematic, sometimes pigeon pose can be difficult. Are you surrendering? Is the breath flowing? Scan your body for the stuck places. See what you can do to flow. All right, let's go ahead and come on out of there. Everybody onto your back. Bring the knees into the chest. Rock around a little bit. Okay, a simple twist to each side. Put your feet down, lift your hips, go right with your knee with your hips, drop left with your knees. Deep breath in, deep breath away. All right, come back to center. Scoot your hips the other way, knees up, drop them down. Slip into the stream one more time, breathe deeply. All right, let's go ahead and relax and find Shavasana. If you need to bring your knees to your chest or a happy baby pose before you lay down, that's fine too. And as you find comfort, remember this is our deep practice of letting go. There's a reason why it's called corpse pose, Shavasana. So let's find that sense of dropping, releasing the body, melting what you can. Where is your face holding that doesn't have to? Where are your palms holding that don't have to? Melt everything you can have access to, your limbs, your spine, all the corners in your face, the little tiny spaces. Let go of the banks and slip into the stream of your breath.
Let's begin to deepen our breathing again. Find your way into more expansive awareness of what your body feels like, what your breath feels like. Can you sink into the earth just one more time? The little mini surrenders can feel really good if we let them. Let's find our way into movement. Okay, so feel free to stretch your arms. Move around in any way that's best. Eventually coming up to sit. Let's dedicate your practice maybe to someone who you know feels very disconnected and alone. See if you can invite your energy into a meeting with theirs. Offer the deep sense of connection. Namaste. Thank you, everyone.